I heard that on the radio.
Folks, welcome back inside the Paris Sea Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is hour number 2 of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live, download our free app, and stream all of our live local programming, including yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. Can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. We just heard from legendary studio musician, accomplished guitarist John Tropea. And then out of the blue from Philadelphia, Pat Martino called me on my cell phone. And now, what a treat, a guy that I've been friends with on new media for quite some time, but he's chimed in on a couple of my posts, and I'm always fascinated with the regionalism and the gut bucket sounds of the different regions of this country before full interconnection. And this cat was on the bandstand in Oakland, California, among others, playing with the heaviest soul, R&B, and funk outfits. He continues today to be a prolific, prodigious musician, saxophone player, and it's an honor. Bobby Spencer, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, Jake. My pleasure.
How you doing, my man?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm burning, man. I mean, I feel honored and blessed to be on this mission. I'm sure that you've seen some of my excerpts. I know you've posted on some of them, but at 38 years old, to be on this journey, I really feel, I don't think I ever really want to get syndicated, and I don't want to ever have a corporate gig because I don't ever want anybody to tell me what I can ask you guys. I just want to be, and it's hard because my wife thinks I'm insane, and my older daughter, I show her these. I was up in Phoenix watching Randy Weston play with his African Rhythms Quintet, and I'm showing her this jam, and she's like, "Dad, as long as you're making money, I'm okay." But this is not really. I'm getting it from everywhere. But it's cats like you, Bobby, that. So to answer your question is, I'm having a ball. Through it all.
Great.
I wanted.
I know you are.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can listening to you when you're doing the interviews. I can tell you're really loving it. You're loving it.
Why do you think this is all a fantasy for me, Bobby? I was born in '78, but for somebody like yourself who was in the mix, you understand why I love it, right? This was an incredibly intoxicating period of time. Not just because of all the live venues, not just because of all the great individual players, but ultimately because of the love. And that's really what I wanted to start with you, is the love that you felt, if you did feel the love from Johnny Talbot, from Jimmy McCracklin, from
Yes.
I could just I want you to just talk about that concept, not intimate love, not person to I'm just talking about the love on the bandstand that fostered not just the community, but obviously increasing the vocabulary of the music.
Yes. Well, I was with Jimmy on and off, and Jimmy. Both of these people taught me a lot. Johnny Talbot was really a mentor for me. The first time I auditioned for his band. I had done a lot of practicing, and I'd been playing jazz. And Junior Walker messed me up. When I heard Cleo's Mood, I said, I was playing alto before. I said, I got to have a tenor.
I dig.
So that kind of, and then when I auditioned, when I auditioned for Johnny's band, we were playing, he starts off with a blues shuffle and called Kidney Stew. And in the middle of my solo, he stopped the band. He said, "What is that shit you're playing?" I was in the middle of the blues. I was playing a whole tone scale.
So it was a jazz scale.
Yeah. And so what he said he liked me and he liked my playing, but he said, "Look, you go down the street. This is in Oakland. Go down here to Reed's Records." That was the record store in Oakland. And he said, "You pick up Bill Doggett's Honky Tonk."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "You learn every note." And that's what I did.
This is really important, Bobby. This is where the rubber meets the road for the Jake Feinberg Show. Can you talk about why it was the transition from playing, I mean, at that time, you had cool jazz. It was the tail end of, It was, I mean, bebop was not really happening as much anymore, but it was cool jazz. It was modal jazz. Can you talk about the transition to learning how to play? I had talked to the drummers about this, but for a horn player, how you had to get comfortable playing the shuffle on the bandstand. Obviously, you can listen to the Doggett records, but can you talk about how you had to adjust to playing the shuffle beat?
Well, excuse me. Johnny was, he was a master of the shuffle beat, and his band was too. And so, he whooped on me with love. He changed my name. I was Bobby Spencer, and he started. We had a rehearsal with this real pretty girl, and she was having some problems with one of the tunes. So I went over to her, and I was trying to help her. And he started calling me Charles Boyer. So to this day, he still calls me Boy. He said, "Oh, you're talking to her, and you're Charles Boyer, boy." He's a funny guy. He makes you laugh at yourself. So.
Can you? I mean, can you give a specific example of the, how you, my generation at 30, I'm 38, Gen Xer, millennials. I mean, I'm proud to say that we are a more sensitive, less hardier bunch of people. We hang on words more. We get hung up a little bit more. How did Talbot not alienate you, and that you knew that he did care about you, even if he was riding you so hard?
Well, I don't know how to explain it, but if you're with Johnny, a lot of musicians didn't like him because he was very, very blunt. He'll tell me today when I go up there and play with him. He said, "Boy, you're playing too many notes."
You're too notey. I love this. I love it.
Because I have a lot of chops. I came into the rhythm and blues because of my jazz background. I used to practice 8 and 12 hours a day. And so I had chops. And I had to think of away from those chops. He says, "I want you to sing on your horn." He didn't say sing. Sang. S-A-N-G, means sing.
Sang, yeah. Sang on your horn. Yeah, I dig.
He said, "Boy, you got to sing on that horn. You're playing too many notes." So my quest since those days, and when I got with him, I was past 25. I had been playing rhythm and blues already, but he took me deep, deep, deep into rhythm and blues and the blues. He taught me so much, I could write a book on the stuff he taught me.
Could you talk? I mean, I was transcribing one of my quotes from Steve Gadd, the drummer, and he said, one of the things he says, "Simple is not as simple as it looks." And
right.
I mean, exactly. I know. Can you talk about that? Because you're going from complex jazz stuff to simpler stuff. But simple was not as simple as it looked, right? I mean, it just was not that way.
Yeah. Well, when I first got with him, the first time he startled me, we were playing in San Francisco at a club called the Brentwood over by the Cow Palace. And we were on the way home. And at that time, his car had went out, so we were riding in my car. And he told me that Coltrane is no greater than Lightning Hopkins. And that was hard for me to, But over the years of knowing him, now I understand completely what he means.
I need you to explain to the audience this is where my show lies. What did he mean?
Well, he was basically saying that Lightning Hopkins was a great artist, and just because he wasn't playing flat fives and flat nines and raised 11s and complex chord progressions, that it didn't make him any less of an artist than John Coltrane. Now, John Coltrane was one of my idols, along with Charlie Parker. And it took years of playing with him, and we're best of buddies. We still talk at least once a week. He's in Oakland, I'm here in L.A.
Oh, my God. I mean, this dude, this is legendary. This is exactly, so he still says you're playing too many notes?
I can go up there right now. I can hop in my car and go up there right now, rehearse with him, and he'll say, "Boy, you're playing too many notes."
By the way, how do you spell Boyer?
I don't know. You know, the actor Charles Boyer, who died some time ago, one of the great actors. I don't really know how you spell it.
Okay, well, I'll have to do some work on that. So Talbot, I mean, he's still burning, but the point is that those guys, he was just trying to say that they were playing burning music, and you didn't have to get all intellectual to play burning music.
Exactly. And he wanted me to play simple, and it took, when you've been practicing, listening to Coltrane, day in and day out, Bird, and all the other sax players I listen to, it takes a while to get to that where you can sing on the horn.
Talking to Bobby Spencer here live on the Jake Feinberg Show on PowerTalk.live. Did you ever run across the drummer Kickin' Curtis Moore?
I don't know.
Because
I knew Curtis.
Yeah, well, because Curtis had a stutter. He's still around. He had a stuttering problem. He played with Jimmy McCracklin. He used to go.
Yeah. I had to. Kurt, I think that's. I called him Funky Foot.
Funky Foot, no, Funky Foot. That's right. Because literally,
his kick drum was woo.
because he was so badass that this bass player David Margan, who was with Santana, when Margan was 14, he was in a band with Kickin' Curtis Moore, and he looked up to this Curtis Moore so much that he actually started to stutter like Curtis did. But those cats, the backbeat, the syncopation. I mean, I am really fascinated with this time period, Bobby. I know you're not a drummer, but I mean the rhythms were that syncopated rhythms and those cross rhythms that were going on were intoxicating. I mean, with John, did you get a chance to play jazz at the Red Balloon? Did you ever play with Ed Kelly? I mean, I have been marinating in Oakland. I need you. Did you? I mean, aside from being the cat with the fangs, did you play some jazz as well during that time?
Oh, I was always playing jazz. I play jazz now.
In what context? I mean, there was the Cold Duck Club, right? There was the Cold Duck.
Okay. Well, what the setup was in those days, and people, Sly Stone, gets credit for creating Oakland Funk. Sly Stone did not create Oakland Funk. Johnny Talbot did.
Good. This is why I do my show. Let's straight ahead. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even during the times before I got into the funk scene, I was playing with a Latin. I guess they call it salsa now. I was playing in the Latin bands. We're playing. They call it mambo there.
Oh, love it.
And I was playing in those bands with my alto, and I was hearing Johnny Talbot on the radio. Johnny Talbot was like a star in the Bay Area. Sly Stone was a DJ at San Francisco. He didn't even have a band. What happened is, I heard you talking to a guy earlier about the organ trios.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy named Eugene Keel, and he had an organ trio, and there were others. That was what was happening. So I was going around to the local clubs to hear these guys, and particularly Eugene Keel. One day I went down to the Reno club, and as I came to it, I heard a sound. I swear to you, Jake, I heard a sound I'd never heard before. It was like, what is this? It was so beautiful. And as I got to the club and I went to the door, I knew the girl at the door, and I looked in there, and it was Johnny Talbot. And I had never heard music like that before. What happened was Johnny Talbot wasn't hardly any time after that. There were no more organ trios in those clubs. All the bands were playing like Johnny Talbot's band.
Specifically, what were you hearing that blew your mind? I mean, just for the audience.
Well, at that time, I didn't know what it was because I'd never heard anything like it before. It was so beautiful to me. It was basically Oakland funk. Johnny Talbot, his father was a Pentecostal preacher, and Johnny came from the South. He did an apprenticeship with T-Bone Walker. He went up to Alaska. He blended he blended that Pentecostal sound and all of that. In fact, his father would come to him and say the ladies in the church are complaining, said he was bringing that rhythm, the music in the secular world. They didn't use that term.
right
into the church music. He was changing the church music. And his dad was pretty cool. He said, don't pay no attention to him.
So they were. Is it fair to say that he was bringing the blues into the gospel? One of the first cats to do that.
Yeah, what he was doing was the kind of rhythm blues that was out there. He was bringing a lot more of the Pentecostal stuff. You're talking about the drum rhythm, rhythm, and of course the blues scale. Then he had the blues with T-Bone Walker, and even now his guitar style, you can hear T-Bone in his style. And another thing they did, and he was opening for James Brown. James Brown fired him. And they would do what he called scratching on the guitar. A session guy knew down, he called it the Yankee Chank. And it's like, it was rhythm. It was just rhythm, syncopated rhythms. So when I first got with his band, after audition, it took me about a year before I could play his music. It was so damn syncopated.
Bobby Spencer, where I need tapes. Are there tapes of this stuff? Because it's very frustrating on the, a lot of the, I've never seen a Johnny Talbot vinyl record, but even the CDs, it doesn't necessarily credit you. Did you get in the studio with him too? How many albums are you on? I met him and got with him after his heyday. Mm-hmm. Who I was with, that was a part of making this. The next band that followed him that was a prominent and kind of replaced him in a sense. He was still doing his thing. But the next hot band was Marvin Home and the Uptights. I know him very well. They were very influential. Garibaldi from Tower of Power was really very high about Marvin Holmes and the Uptights. You want to talk about how they kept the vocabulary moving along?
Well, after that day, I saw Johnny Talbot, and there had been the organ trios. There were essentially no more organ trios, and every band there was a guy named Eddie Foster, a fantastic guitar player. His band was playing in that style. Marvin Holmes was, Eugene Blacknell, all of the Oakland bands, and San Francisco too, all of the black bands, and then the white bands started playing like that. I don't exactly know when. There was a band, everybody copied John.
This is so insanely, my head would have exploded as a patron, it would have been insane. Did you, were you going to Jackson Sutter to get the jazz out of your system? I really need to know if you ever.
One of the places I was going was Bop City in Haight-Ashbury. After hours jam session club over there.
I want you to. It was in Bop City was in North Beach, and that
it was in Haight. Maybe I'm mixing it up.
No. Because I'm going to ask you. It was called the Haight Street Flats or something. I don't know. Jerry Grinelli used to tell me about that. There were. I just want to know about those jazz clubs, man, because a lot of the cats that maybe they were from San Francisco, bands that came. They weren't even necessarily musicians at that point. But the music they were hearing was blowing their minds, and that was the music you were playing. And so, did you have a jazz band at that time when you were, with Mark? Once you played, go ahead.
I was playing the Latin scene. I had a band. I was a co-leader of a band. I don't know if you know who was a bass player named Paul Jackson. I
did an epic hour. I cannot. Paul Jackson was playing upright bass. I want you to keep going here, please. I know Paul. I know Paul well. Yeah.
I hope I got the right one. The one I'm talking about ended up being with Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters.
That's the same cat. Yep.
Yeah, that's Paul. Yep. Okay, I was 19. Paul was 16, and a bunch of us musicians. We actually should have had a bed in his house because we lived over there, and we just played and played and played. Paul was 16, big, giant, young, sweet guy, and innocent too. And he could play his natural ass off. I don't know if I should use those words.
It's okay.
He was a monster. So we just practiced and rehearsed and write songs, and we just did whatever we felt. And it was down in the basement. And his sister, what's her name? She was a cabaret singer. His other sister was 15. She was on flute. She ended up with the Philharmonic under Leonard Bernstein. Joyce.
I want to read you this quote, and then you can keep going because I want to know more about this band. He said, this is Paul Jackson from our interview. He said, I started as a string bass player, tuba, bassoonist. As a child, I was listening to my father play stride piano. For the for the formal part of bass, I had to come downstairs and play with him for a half hour. He couldn't get all his chords right, but he had a terribly unbelievable left hand. His left hand, he's left-handed and I'm left-handed, but I don't play left-handed. And then he goes on to say this. He said this, I owe so much to all the Montgomery brothers who lived in Oakland, especially Buddy. He said we used, and this could be Bobby Spencer. He goes, we used to play at the Left Bank in Oakland, which was a juke joint. And this is all in my teens before I got drafted. All those cats know me from when I was playing upright bass. That's the band, isn't it?
No, I wasn't in with the Heat. I didn't even know they were in Oakland. But Paul, I've been trying to remember the name of that club, Jake, for years.
Well, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. You got it, buddy. Yeah, no problem.
The Left Bank. God. I can't tell you how many years I've been trying to remember the name of the club. It's not there anymore.
Well, you know, that's my pocket. But all I'm saying is, man, I've been woodshedding for 6 years, and whether it's Larry Vann or Tower of Power or Paul Jackson.
Larry Vann, you know the drummer Larry Vann?
Larry Vann and I have done 2 cosmic interviews because Larry played with Marvin Holmes, dude. Larry's been hip.
Right.
Yeah, Larry played with. I mean, I feel, even though I grew up in Long Island. And was born in the late 70s. The musical community and the music that came out of that time, it's one reason I've wanted to have you on the show for many years. I just finally reached out to you, is because there was no hotter scene than that Bay Area scene. Period.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, so you're playing with Paul in that Latin context.
Yeah.
And where were you but you weren't playing at the Left Bank. You were playing more like you were playing Bop City, or were you playing?
I was playing at the Left Bank before Paul. How do I say it? The what do you call it? The chronology. I don't know exactly how, but Paul was so good. He was bound to quote unquote make it, which he did. So I caught him before those years. He was 16 when I was playing with him, so he was probably more like 18 or 19 when he got with the Heath brothers and so forth. And I can't think. Denise Perrier, his sister, was singing cabaret in those days.
Wow.
We were young cats. I was the friend of mine, the guitar player, good friend of mine, Tully Weberg. Tully was in love with one of Paul's sisters. You know, these are older women to us. You know, we didn't have a prayer with them.
I dig, man. I dig.
And there was another woman, I cannot remember her name. I was in love with her. And they never knew because we were too shy to say anything. And they probably would have laughed us out of loud.
Did you get to know, because you had Rudolph Johnson, Chester Thompson, Herschel Davis playing organ trio with Jackson Sutter. Did you have a chance to play with Myrtle Saunders?
No, but I knew of him. I didn't really know him. I knew Chester, though.
You knew Chester. Can you talk? Did you get to? I guess what I'm trying to say, again, I'm trying to get at this idea, like you're playing all this R&B and like soul and funk, and yet you're rooted in this jazz music, and I just I'm just trying to figure out that if you could just talk a little bit more about the propensity of you, when you were able to channel. I mean, did you play modal jazz, and did you you're talking about Raised 11ths with Dolphy and Arthur, all these cats. Well, this crossover, and it was really before I don't know, jazz has become such a wine and cheese kind of genre. It's like before it was Art Blakey. His job was to wash away the dust of everyday life for regular peeps, and so you really were coming of age, Bobby, before jazz got too complex. And so if you could just talk a little bit about your evolution as a jazzer, and when you would go to San Francisco, the kind of people you would wind up locking in with.
Yeah. Well, basically, I would go to San Francisco mainly to the jazz workshop, mainly to see John Coltrane. Pharoah Sanders actually introduced me to John Coltrane. And me and do you know who Pharoah Sanders is?
Yeah, he won't do an interview with me. I got to get to him. His wife keeps blocking me. Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
But we were going around. Another friend of mine introduced me to him. He was in town, and they told me this guy is incredible, and he's basically kind of famous. And so, but he didn't have a car. So I met him, and basically I just drove him and me around to every jam session he wanted to go to.
Pharaoh or John?
Pharaoh, not John.
Okay, so Pharaoh didn't have a car, and you were driving Pharaoh, and you were driving him to every jam. I love this. I love it.
Yeah, he just never got tired of jam sessions. So Ed Kelly had the main jam session in Oakland. Him and at the
Cold Duck Club or something.
There was a Cold Duck. I don't remember it was there, but there was Mr. Majors out on MacArthur, one block down from where my grandmother lived.
Right.
They had a jam session, and I used to go to that on a pretty regular basis. And Pharaoh was there. He wanted to go there. There were all kind of places. Some of those clubs I can't remember. There was a club just called Subo's that I went to, and I can't even tell you where that was. I think it was in Berkeley, and that Haight-Ashbury area. I can't remember all the places I went, but the guy that kind of taught me jazz in a certain way was Tully Weberg, was my buddy in high school. So I started trying to play jazz in high school, playing with the big band. And it was a crack big band at Fremont High School in Oakland. And, those guys could read fly shit backwards. And, those guys, hey, man, I'm not kidding you. They could read. I was never a great music reader, but, and what happened, my mother was into jazz. So she had all these jazz records. I was hearing them all the time. She put us in this jazz record club. That's why I ended up hearing Bird the first time. I didn't know what the hell to make a Bird.
Right.
But something made me kept listening to the cut. He was playing all this weird music, and frankly, I didn't like it. But something made me keep coming back to it. Then I got into high school. Now, remember, I was 12 and 13 then. Then I got into high school, and I met Tully, the guitar player. And he was a Bird maniac. So he started teaching me all this stuff about Bird. He started teaching me all these tunes. We'd get together and play, and that's what started me in jazz. Oh, I forgot to tell you. What happened in the jazz band, coming out of junior high, Miss Margaret Spiller, the lady music teacher. I wish I could thank her to this day. When we're going to go to high school, she wanted me to apply, or what do you call it, elective, for the big band. They called it big band then, stage band they called it. I wanted to learn theory. So anyway, I put theory as first. When I got to high school, they put me in that band.
Unbelievable.
And wait a minute, Jake. I wasn't a great reader. But Miss Spiller had that done. She knew Mr. Kane, the band teacher, who'd been on the road with the big bands, like whoever, Benny Goodman or Woody Herman. So he was a seasoned musician. So I'm in the band, and there's three of us little altos in there. One day, Mr. Kane said, on the intermission riff, he says, okay, I want you to solo. He went to the first guy who could read pretty good. He said, no, I can't. I don't know how to do it. So he let him go. Then he went to the next guy and told him to solo on this song. He couldn't do it, and he let him go. He got to me, and I said, I don't know how to solo. he made me do it. And you know what happened? I didn't know I could do that. The whole band forgot to come in when they were supposed to come in. They were astounded at my solo.
So, but you're talking about improvising, just playing.
Improvising, yeah.
Okay, so
just playing.
And you never knew you could do that, and it just came out of your horn.
It just came, I had a hunch I could, but I've been told you got to learn theory and all that stuff before you can solo. You can't. You don't know how to. That was true to a point, but not like the way they had said. So I was like a sensation. After that, everybody wanted me to play gigs with them, jazz gigs, and give you how good some of these guys were. One became a lead trumpet player for a symphony orchestra. one became in Vegas. I mean, these guys could read, man. And so I just ended up getting gigs all the time. And at the same time, I was lead singer for a doo-wop group.
It doesn't ever end. So would you? What is it, like mid-60s? What can you pinpoint a time on this?
It was just. Let's see. I got into high school in '58, so it was probably 59, 60. Yeah.
This is what I wanted to ask you about too. I've done a couple interviews with James Gadsden, and he was.
Yeah, I know Gadsden.
I know you do. I bet you guys and. And so the other group that, along with Marvin Holmes and the Uptights and Johnny Talbot and the Fangs, is Dyke and the Blazers. Dyke and the Blazers, right? And
yeah.
So when Gadsden was with Hank Ballard and the Midnighters, he said that to me that they'd be on the road, and at the time, I mean, they were playing just R&B, gut buckets, funk, R&B and soul, but the opening set. Ballard would have let the rhythm section go out for the opening set, and they'd be playing modal Coltrane tunes and Bird tunes. And did you have a chance to play? There was that Chitlin circuit, like you said, James Brown and the Flames. They went through Concord, they went through Hayward. There was this incredible black Chitlin circuit. But did you have an opportunity to go touring with Johnny or even Marvin Holmes and have an opportunity to play jazz, during the same night that you might be playing once the lead act would come on?
Well, not even touring. We did that. That was the normal way we played. The first set was jazz. It was tended to be funky jazz, like Song to My Father, Sidewinder.
Sure, Lee Morgan, Horace Silver kind of blues stuff, yeah.
Yeah, we played jazz the first set. That was just, everybody did that. And then there was always a star act. The second set was the star. Like, I played in the Showcase with Marvin Holmes' band, and Don Barksdale had been the first black NBA player and first something out of UCLA, and he had two clubs. And so, yeah, we'd always open that first set. That's what I used to practice all those hours for the jazz tunes. I would practice all day.
And then the lead act stuff was more formulaic. But I mean, were you playing free at that point? You were just playing just free jazz, or just?
Well, it was to the changes. We play. What is it? A Sidewinder.
Six Pieces of Silver by Horace Silver.
We played Silver tunes. That one I didn't know, but we played. Yeah, we play all. Yeah, I mean, we had cats that could play.
Talking to Bobby Spencer, kind of already blowing my mind a little bit here on the Jake Feinberg Show. Now, can I ask you how everybody knows the fantasy records from Berkeley, but Ray Shanklin, the original one in Oakland, Lonnie Hewitt was down there, and Bobby Spencer, you were down there doing records at the original Fantasy Studios. Can you talk about the original link to getting into the studio work for you?
Oh yeah, that's an interesting story too. The original Fantasy was in San Francisco on Tree Street. It was owned by the Weiss brothers. And the one that I knew was Max. I never saw the other one. Max Weiss was a funny guy. He used to walk around there calling everybody hippie, and he had shoes that were taped up in the back. And he would just act silly, He was a great guy, And what's happening, hippie?
Everybody was a hippie. I love that. I love it.
Yeah, he was so cool. I had no idea this guy owned. I had no idea he owned the record company. I thought he was the engineer. He had glasses. He looked like an engineer. And Saul Zantz was the manager.
Right.
And I was over there. Oh, how I got there was this friend of mine who I'd been in the doo-wop group with was working with this guy called Harold Andrews. And he needed somebody to write his charts. In other words, he was a producer. he create the music, but he couldn't write, like, essentially the horn parts. He couldn't write and harmonize them. So I could do that. So I came out there, got with Harold, and Harold's girlfriend was Cynthia, who you saw in later in Sly and the Family Stone, girl trumpet player.
Sure. Cynthia Robinson,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. That was his lady, and he had a little daughter, Sarah, a little pretty little thing, about 3 years old. And we rehearsed out there in Richmond, and him and Sly Stone were tight. So Sly was this incredible disc jockey out at K-Soul in San Francisco. So some of the stuff that got me started was because of Harold Andrews, because one of the guitar players with Harold was playing with Roger Collins, who had the hit "She's Looking Good," a fantasy record release.
Wow. I don't. Go ahead, continue.
So he needed a horn player. So I got recruited to go play with Roger Collins. And so that's what really broke me into the Chitlin circuit, was the gig with Roger Collins. And we used to rehearse in the Fantasy Studios virtually every day. I wore a car out driving over to San Francisco. and we rehearsed in the studio, in the recording studio. We just rehearsed in there. And Ray Shanklin was the producer. And there was a bunch of these, I always tell it, a bunch of these long-haired white boys running around there called the Gollywogs.
Yeah, exactly. Creedence Clearwater.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
And, we say hi. We didn't really know them, like hang out with them. They were nice, and we were nice. And so we were all in there just about every day. And so that got me into this Chitlin circuit. Playing with Roger, I remember we played at the Showcase. Sometimes I get the chronology mixed up, because I met Marvin Holmes at Harold Andrews' house, and I met Scotty of the Whispers at Harold Andrews' house. And later on, at Al's House of Smiles, Marvin called me to come play with him there. And I went there. We kind of didn't get along, so I quit. And then maybe a year later, you ever heard of Al Corley?
How do you spell the last name?
I don't know. I don't know.
That's okay. So the chronology, we're going to have to get this all straightened out, because you've lived an incredible musical existence. We're still not even out of the. Did you ever? I know you were young, and quite honestly, you were pretty much just burning on the bandstand. But did you know the cat Charles Sullivan, who owned all the black clubs in the Fillmore?
No, but listen, I knew all about him through Johnny Talbot.
Okay, because I want to get to the bottom of this. Calvin Keys, my man, one of the first interviews I ever did, he said that I'm telling you, man, I've been on this 6 years, 700 interviews. You're the latest one. Calvin Keys told me that Sullivan had a major operation going on. He was running that Chitlin circuit. One day, he winds up dead, shotgun blast to his heart, a case of 20,000 grand next to him. Next thing you know, Bill Graham, the head of the Fillmore.
Yep.
Break it down. Can you enlighten me? Because I've been trying to get to, the white cats that came in as part of the, the psychedelic jam band scene. They don't know much about it. David Murray and those cats, I want to know what you know about that, because this is very significant stuff.
Yeah. Well, all I know is what Johnny Talbot told me. What happened? Johnny Talbot was recruited by Sullivan, and he trusted Johnny. He would give Johnny thousands of dollars and say, "Show up somewhere, L.A., whatever." So Johnny Talbot was kind of his man,
Wow.
So Johnny knows all about him because Johnny worked with him and knew him, but I never met him. And I know about, Johnny told me about him getting killed, and Johnny had a few suspicions, of which I will not disclose at this time.
Well, I'm going to disclose. I'm going to talk. I really need to talk to Talbot, because what Calvin said was, it was a hit. It was a mob hit, and that's why they'll. So anyway, I'm not going to. You don't have to spill the beans on that. But it's neither here nor there. But it is important to know what did really happen, because at that time, the Fillmore, it was all black clubs, and it was being run economically by black people. That to me was an amazing situation there. So, Bobby, moving it into to today, stepping into today, Can you talk about not the advice, but the kind of things that you feel younger cats are how to overcome the challenges of the supply and demand issue, not having enough venues to play at, not having a thriving touring circuit in the United States, having to pay to play kind of stuff, what would be your advice to cats that are searching for their own individual sound? They're trying to, kind of just woodshed and, just the same stuff you were doing, but now it's the YouTube generation and art and playing music is no longer, in my mind, it's slipped as a profession in the eyes of our business world. And I just wanted you to talk to younger cats about how they can navigate around all these obstacles that weren't really there when you were coming up.
Right. I honestly don't know what to tell you on that, but I can tell you one thing. I got a lot of little young proteges come to me, and they like the way I play. But I just tell them, but they don't fully understand. Somebody asked Charlie Parker, said, what does it take to become a great jazzman? He said, learn all the blues you can.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Talbot turned me on to the blues as a serious form. And man, I tell you, when I started seriously learning the blues, it edited my playing. I might play, bop do dip and do bip bop and wee bop. Blues told me where to play it and when to play it.
I dig, man. So and your overarching point is what, that cats are not going far enough back to the blues to learn the blues?
Yeah, they still. I got some great little young guys. I mean, a bunch of them coming out of UCLA, USC, little technical freaks.
Sure.
But I got one little girl that'll kill you, Jake. She's in London right now. She just graduated. I guess it's her second year out of USC. When I met her, I was playing one of my blues jams, and she came in there with a little cocky, a little cute thing too, a little white girl. She come in there, got up on the bandstand, violin player, man.
Oh man, burning on that.
Man, she got in my ass. And then to make it worse, I play something real. She played right after me.
Wow, she had monster chops. Well, she can feel the blues. Though is that there's a feel component to it. It's not about technique, because a lot of times, like if I go see you live, I guarantee when I come one day to come see you, there's a feel.
Okay.
There's a feel to the music that you were raised with. That you had to feel.
Oh, yeah.
The music had to feel good, and a lot of cats today, I wind up going to see music, younger cats, and they're technically huge monsters, but you wind up kind of staring at the wall because there's not a lot of soul. I don't feel the soul, And I don't know how you're supposed to replicate that in this technical digital age, but that to me is sort of the grit of it. It doesn't matter if it was hippies playing bluegrass music or plugging into amps and playing psychedelic rock or Charlie Parker tunes or going to the Black Knight to see Gaylord Birch and Tommy Coster. Who knows? The bottom line is that the soul was bleeding out of everybody, and that's why it felt so good.
That's right.
How do you talk to people about feel, though? How do you talk to them about feel? You can't really talk about feel. Is it just through practical application? Feel, to me, is essential.
Well, I talk to them about it, and they understand the words, I found out. Like, for instance, I played in a big band in a couple of years, I guess. 16-piece band. And the young tenor players, young white dudes, got chops up the game. They just love my playing. They want to play like me. And I tell them, I said, look, for instance, I copped Junior Walker's solos for 2 years straight, just every day, every fucking day. I used to cop BB solos on my horn and on, Jimmy Reed, everything. And I tell them, what happens is, when they do it cop, they don't do enough. What do you mean? They what does that mean? They don't have enough ideas, sequencing ideas, long enough? What do you mean? They don't stretch out? No, they don't learn enough of the blues. They'll learn a little piece here and a little piece there. They don't. What they don't do is it's like they don't give it the credit that it's due. They don't know. I was talking to one of the little young guys, great guy, just graduated from UC Irvine, drummer, and his friend, the bass player. I was telling him, he was saying, "Well, Bobby, I really like the way you play," because he says, "You just don't play just the pentatonic when you're playing the blues." Well, actually, I do. But the way I play the pentatonic, I thought I was just playing regular pentatonic like everybody else. But they tell me I'm not, you know. So, but they just don't know it well enough, and they don't give it enough credit. They're putting down. They think, I remember this one kid. He copped a little bit of Grover
Washington Jr. Yeah, Mr. Magic or something. Yeah.
And to them, it's too repetitious. It's not. They don't think it's enough ideas.
So this is so important. I think you're nailing it. So they don't give it the respect it's due. Are you
No.
So going back to that comment that I can't even remember. I guess maybe it was Johnny told you that it was Lightning Hopkins and Coltrane.
Johnny Talbot.
Johnny Talbot. So it's like what for cats that are, how should they honor or give it the respect that it's due? How to go back? How to be? Is it instead of playing a snippet here and a snippet there, is to stretch out even more? Because when they're coming to you and saying, "I want to play like you," they're hearing the feel, right? They're feeling something.
Yeah. They don't understand why I play like that.
Right.
Okay, if you hear me play a solo on, let's say a tune or jazz tune, like I Remember April or There'll Never Be Another You. Now, I'll play blues in there, but I'm going to play a lot of just regular jazz stuff. But the feel of my jazz phrasing, in other words, I can play a regular diatonic scale. I can play you a regular scale and make it funky.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my extensive experience in the blues and funk and Junior Walker and King Curtis and all that, they don't do enough of the studying of it. You've got to learn it. You got to learn it like you learn in, okay, what is it? I can't think of it. Big, tall, bad. He died some years ago. Tenor player. But anyway, this kid in this big band that I was playing in, that was his main guy. He listened to him. And, he listened to him like he was God. But you got to go listen to Junior or somebody like that, too.
I love
David
it.
Sanborn is a good example. David Sanborn is a bad mofo.
Yeah, but most people don't realize that he was playing in Butterfield's band. That dude was blowing.
Yeah.
He was blowing.
And
the smooth jazz stuff I can't really handle, but the dude was steeped in the
funky folk.
Funk foot. Yeah.
Yeah, he played smooth jazz for money, but that boy could play.
You know what? There's nothing wrong. Yeah, I again, like I said, I told you before, I'm not making anything. This is my whole show is about soul. But I guess that's the. Can you Charles Lloyd often gets a lot of press because his band with Keith Jarrett and Jack D was they were playing the Fillmore West, but then I'm reading here that you were part of the first U.S. rock festival along with the Doors and the Byrds.
Yeah.
At Magic Mountain in Mount Tam. Please break down the whole story. In what context were you playing in that hippy dippy fest?
Well, it's nothing in a way because I had no idea what I was playing. Until it came out later. Roger Collins called me up and said, "You might get a call from this guy from the Rolling Stone magazine about that festival." Well, I came there. I can remember I was terrified going up that damn mountain, and we played. I remember Fifth Dimension was there. I didn't know who was there. We would play sometimes. We play that gig and leave and go to another gig. So I knew hardly anything about it.
Did you ever? When you're saying recently, Collins, Roger called you and said, "Listen, this cat's going to be calling you." But do you remember the band you were playing with? Were you with Roger at that time?
Yeah.
Wow.
The only reason Roger was there, he had a hit. So
this is. Did you ever wind up with any intermingling with any of the psychedelic rock bands, Quicksilver, the Grateful Dead? They were right in your backyard. You had such an elasticity.
I was had an offer to go with the Blues Project. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
Sure.
They had a thing called the flute thing. I went to 2 rehearsals. Well, yeah, wait a minute. I went to 1 rehearsal. It was on Mount Tamalpais, by the way, in this house. Somebody let them use this big house. And then they were playing at Fillmore. It was a gig.
Wow.
And one of the guys in the band had been in a mental institution. Apparently, he was the most talented. I can't remember his name. And he came out that night, so I met him, and we tore that place up. And they auditioned. They auditioned 300 musicians for that gig, and they offered it to me.
Damn. The hurricane. You're the hurricane.
I wasn't known as that back then.
Oh my God!
Old guy, he died some years ago. Excuse me. Here in L.A., named me that. We were playing, and he just looked at me and said, "I play with a lot of fire. You know what I mean? I'm kind of crazy like that." He looked at me and said, "He says you're the hurricane. He's that sound of your horn. That you know."
I love it so much. You know, Bobby, I wanted to. We've already been burning for 57 minutes. I wanted to ask, did you ever get a chance to get to hang with Johnny Guitar Watson at all?
No, I didn't. You know, the main thing with me, I was in Oakland most of the time, and so a lot of those people Johnny Talbot did. Johnny Talbot was Aretha's guitar player for a while. He knew Johnny Guitar Watson very well. He was Marvin Gaye. His band was Marvin Gaye's band for a while.
Wow.
Marvin Gaye used to sit in and play drums. This
No.
Before he became super, oh, really? Marvin Gaye, he always called Johnny D-Fang.
And Marvin was playing drums with Johnny?
Well, no, Johnny had his band,
Mm-hmm.
D-Fangs, and Marvin he was on the road backing up Marvin, and sometimes Marvin wanted to come out there and just play drums for a while.
Dude, this is why, Bobby, I could talk to you for 9 hours, dude. This is the most incredible stuff. You know, can we do a part 2 down in the I'd love to talk. I'd love to.
Yeah, and another thing.
Yeah.
At some point, I got to come to Tucson and hang out with you, or you got to come out to LA and hang out with me.
No, I'm coming this. I'm going to be coming this summer, man. We're both hurricanes. I mean, but no, I mean, dude, I knew. I've been looking. I saw a post I put up about Marvin Holmes and the Uptights, and you wrote a long piece. It was one of the few forums on Facebook that you chimed in on. It's going back a ways, and I said, "Wow, dude, that dude is right in the pocket, right in my pocket, man." And I wasn't even born. I wasn't even conceived anything at that point. So let's keep collaborating, and I'll be blowing out these stories later on Facebook. So share them, and
right.
Much love to you, Bobby. Great to talk. Great to connect with you, man.
Wait a minute. Let me tell you one thing.
Do it.
The girl that I told you was incredible violin player, could play the blues.
Yeah.
She's also a monster jazz player too.
What's her? Do you have a name? You have a name on her?
What's Nora's last name? Retha. She got earphones.
Listen.
Yeah.
We'll sort it out. We'll shoot some messages back and forth because we got
right.
we got more to do, Bobby. Much love to you, man. Thank you for being part of the program.
Thank you so much. I loved it.
All right, man. We'll do it again.
All right.
Love always. Take care, brother.
Same to you, brother.
All right. Peace. And that's a wrap. Just another heavy day here. Mike Roper doing his due diligence across the way, engineering. John Tropea, Bobby Spencer, more history, more enlightenment, more promotion of real music and love. That's the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll be back next week, same time, same place on Power Talk. Peace.
I don't know. I've been playing blues for quite a while. I've been around the world a few times. Like to play the blues. It's not all the money that I want. I just like to play the blues. And I like for everybody to get together and all of us play the blues and let's have a good time. Because blues is where it's at. I'm telling you, I love it. I can't help but play it. So when you wake up in the morning,
you're a gig.